Hi, it's Steve Huggenau, and we're in day one of the 5th Annual Global Education Conference. Amy Shaffer is here. Amy, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Amy is the Creative Director at Connected World. Her topic is the Library Global Clubhouse for Creative Good. Thanks to our sponsors and supporters for the Global Education Conference. Big shout out to Iron USA, the Global Campaign for Education, BIF, Intel, and the Wonderment. Really appreciate all of the support. This is a chance for those of you participating live to indicate where you are in the world. Look for the star to the left of the map. Click on it twice, then click on the map. Feel free to put a shout out in the chat. Oh, look, we're hitting several continents. This is nice.
So awesome.
Cold and getting dark. Ecuador, DC, Chicago, Salt Lake, Illinois, Lebanon, there we are.
Awesome.
Lithuania, yes, how fun. Okay, keep those notes going in the chat. I'm going to turn things over to Amy. Take it away.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Steve. And I just am so honored to be able to interact. I've been in the sessions throughout the day and just been so inspired by all the people who are participating in this. It's just pretty awesome, pretty awe-inspiring. Today, as the title indicates, I want to talk a little bit about libraries, which are something that are pretty near and dear to my heart. I'm not a librarian, but it's something that has shaped my life in a really substantial manner. And I want to talk a little bit today about a few things, but I wanted to start first with this Isaac Asimov quote. And I was a huge science fiction nerd as a kid, so this one, again, had some personal influence for me. But this is a note that he sent to a school in 1971, and he said, "Dear boys and girls, congratulations on the new library, because it isn't just a library. It is a spaceship that will take you to the farthest reaches of the universe, a time machine that will take you to the far past and the far future, a teacher that knows more than any human being, a friend that will amuse you and console you, and most of all, a gateway to a better and happier and more useful life." And that was just so striking to me. It's something that I've kept with me over the last little bit as we've had interactions with libraries in our work with Connected World and the Wonderment, which I'll talk a little bit more about later, how it kind of merges into this. But the thing that I think is so powerful about this, and the thing that makes me feel something every time I read it, is that I think that that's what we all want for our kids and for our society as a whole. We want a gateway to a better and happier and more useful life, but we want to know how we do it. We want to know what it means, and we want to be able to reimagine the world with it. And so today, in that kind of spirit, that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about why libraries are so important, how they're evolving, and how we support them as a clubhouse for global change. And I'll talk a little bit more about what I mean by that too as we go on. But I kind of, from you guys, if it's something that you feel so inclined or inspired to do, I'd love to hear, I think people's personal viewpoints on the library and their own experiences with it are some of the most powerful things that you can possibly share. So in the chat window, if you, throughout the course of this, feel inspired to share anything about what the library means to you, maybe memories or things that what it means to you on a day-to-day basis, I would love to hear those things, because it just always inspires me too. So the reason why I have this, I call this the ultimate Venn diagram of magic. I really think that the space where curiosity and connection meet, that's the horn, that's where the magic's at. And that's what I think the library really is in a lot of unique ways. I think that the way that we're able to engage our imaginations in the library space is really powerful. A really powerful moment of realizing this for me was when I was talking to my friend Doot. And my friend Doot is he's one of the lost boys of Sudan, and as such had some pretty harrowing and pretty unusual experiences as a young boy, and ended up in Kenya in a refugee camp called Kankama. And in Kankama, the space that was considered the quote-unquote library was a temporary shelter. It wasn't anything fancy. It wasn't anything, even to speak of necessarily, but it was a space that he knew that he could go that provided a portal to imagining that a world beyond his own could exist. And that was something that he spoke of as we got to know each other really passionately, and because he saw it as the seed and kind of the kernel of what his life grew to be, which is now he lives near me in Salt Lake, and he actually runs a nonprofit organization of his own called SOAP, and they look to find orphan scholars in Kenya and Sudan, where he's from, and then actually support and fund their education. So he's continuing that cycle of giving back to supporting that kind of space for kids. But the thing that I thought that was a really interesting first aspect of the library that's so powerful is that it both in spirit and in actual physical nature, it's a portal. And that's kind of borne out by the fact that there are 13 more libraries globally than there are even hospitals. They're the digital hub. They're a place that exists in various forms. Clearly, it's not all one form, but in various forms they exist around the world. And if you go anywhere, typically you can find a library within the community, and that's usually where you'll also find things like digital connection. You'll find access to resources. There's a lot of different things that kind of tend to coalesce around a library that make it a really dynamic place, which makes it kind of a place that amazing things are possible. So the hub, the aspect of the library as a hub, is an important part of why it's so important. And then the other thing that I think, and as you can tell going through this, I have a penchant for poetic expressions of truth. But this quote from Caitlin Moran: "A library in the middle of a community is a cross between an emergency exit, a life raft, and a festival. They are cathedrals of the mind, hospitals of the soul, theme parks of the imagination." And the thing that really speaks to me is that it answers a variety of needs from a variety of different perspectives. And that's why I think libraries are so powerful, particularly in schools, is that it's a space where the individual needs and interests of the person who's coming there are facilitated to take them on a journey, and to be able to have a certain amount of self-directed input to that. And I think that that's really powerful, because when all of us have different places that we come from to learn, and all of us have different ways that best suit us to learn and to grow, and the fact that the library is basically, in a lot of ways, whatever you need it to be, is a really powerful aspect of it that I think is another big part of why it's so important. And I'm probably preaching to the choir here. This is probably all things that everyone knows, but for me, going through and really identifying why I had the feelings that I had about the library were really powerful in how it informed the work that I do, which we'll get to in a minute. But basically, it's a space that is rich with potential. And I think that when you look at kids, that's also something that you see. You see this richness of potential, and this is something that I came personally in contact with and really gained a new perspective of when my work with Connected World took me to Cambodia. And a group of us went to Cambodia to visit one of our partners, the Cambodian Children's Fund. And it's a really fascinating organization that works to create physical spaces. So basically, there's a dump named Stong Menchi there where kids typically, it's a pocket that they don't end up going to school because they're actually being sent out to forage in this dump. Essentially, it's a pretty grim reality in some ways. But this Cambodian Children's Fund had basically started with the idea of providing spaces where kids could be kids and explore that in a safe manner. And it's really incredible. It's been involved, or it's been around for the last, I think it's been around for 7 years now. but they've done just incredible work. And when I was there, the thing that really sunk into me was seeing these kids, and you would see where they would come from and where they would go home at night, but then they would come to this space where their light was unbelievable. And the more time that I spent there, the more, and our entire group, we would look around at each other and just say, we need what these kids bring as much as they're needing any of us. And it was because somebody took the time and paid the attention to creating a space that was designed to meet their needs and protect what we kind of came to call the creator identity. I really think that is what is it's the heartbeat of every one of us, is our creator identity. And it's the thing that makes us want to learn. It's the thing that motivates us to connect to others. And it's the thing that really fuels true change in society on an interpersonal and a societal level. And I really walked away from that experience, and our entire group did, realizing that when you give kids these kinds of spaces, truly incredible things can happen. And that is that's kind of been the emphasis of Connected World from its inception point, is that kids really have the ability and the desire to change their world, and they just need tools and spaces to do it. The thing where I think these things converge in interesting ways, the needs of kids and the opportunities for libraries are evolving in tandem. Clearly, we know that libraries are in a really interesting moment right now. They have typically, in a lot of ways, they've been considered in a somewhat analog way, and that the digital aspects of the world could be maybe considered a threat, or there's obviously all kinds of different perspectives, but the overwhelming majority of people I've had the privilege to run into see this as a moment of opportunity, where the way that we learn mixes with the places that we learn, and we evolve together. And I think that that's it's something I've grown increasingly passionate about as we've interacted with kids and seen how important to kids these kind of spaces actually are. It's interesting, so the president of the American Library Association, Barbara Stripling, said it's time to put more emphasis not on being a repository, but a place of active learning. And this idea of active learning is something, again, preaching to the choir, this group is the tip of the spear when it comes to being innovative about those things, and we've learned so many things from people in this community already. But the idea that more and more it's so important for us to be able to engage in patterns of learning and patterns of change, and that just accumulating facts or even knowing how to answer questions it's changing, and the way that we do that has to change alongside it. This leads into, and this references the creator identity thing I was speaking of a moment ago. It's such a vital aspect of things, and we kind of started realizing that creativity is actually an aspect of literacy that is growing increasingly more important. And sometimes growing up, I don't know if I would have necessarily, I went to the library because I was a total book nerd to escape and find worlds in the pages of books. And the thing that's so amazing and so beautiful is that while that is still so vital, there are avenues for how it can be brought into our actual interactions with each other now, both through technology and just through interesting thinking and people who are thinking about it differently in new ways. The reason why creativity, it's so important, and it's also something that is really challenged right now. There's all kinds of studies that have come out recently with the challenges that kids face, particularly during middle childhood, and that's the age range that we've, in our organization, have worked with most heavily, is 7 to 12. The creative confidence and the creative resilience, the drop in those things in this age range is really, it's kind of breathtaking. It's staggering, and it's kind of sad. And there's a lot of things that can potentially contribute to that. I don't know that we necessarily have a firm answer as to all the reasons why that's happening, but it is something that has been demonstrated to be an issue. And it's also never been more important to kids' futures and to the future of our world that kids know how to use this as a tool for themselves, and to not even just use it as a tool, but to tap into it as part of their identity. Because when you stay attached and stay connected to that part of your identity, there are all kinds of studies that show that that affects you. And I want to read one of these findings that was it was an eye-opener for me. It says, in creative expression, individuals are optimistic, tolerant of uncertainty, directed to their goals, able to utilize resources, are self-accepting and congruent. Moreover, they display empathy, tolerance, and integrated consciousness. And that's from a Johns Hopkins study in 2010. And I looked at that and I was just like, that's what you would hope for a kid. That's what you would hope for a student. That's what you would hope for your own child. That's what you would hope for. You would hope for a society made up of people who were able to do just that. And that's why we started realizing there was such a link between this creativity, the tools and spaces that kids use to access it, and the way that they engage as a global citizen and have a sense of global belonging and belief that they can change the world. And I think that creativity is also the vehicle that helps kids, well, and not just kids, but helps us start thinking of the physical spaces that we use, not so much as just an archive and a place where we kind of, accumulate things, but rather a place where we interact with, have an impact on, and change things. And it's a shift in thinking in our society. It's a shift in thinking, I think, in education in a lot of ways. And it's even a shift in thinking for myself. Just how do I use the tools and resources that I have around me to actually engage in a worldwide conversation and actually be a member of a worldwide community. And this is the thing where looking at it, and one of the most inspiring things for me was actually at the meetup before ISTE that Steve was involved with, and the global ed community that kind of gathered there, listening to people who, just on an individual basis, librarians were turning their spaces into maker spaces, bringing, and not divorcing it from the original, from the typical library that we all consider when we think of the word library, but how do I augment the information that these kids are seeking and give them spaces where they have the autonomy to engage with it in new ways. And so as a part of that, we think our premise is that libraries hold truly unique capacity. And this is, I guess I should say, not just libraries, obviously classrooms that are engaging in this kind of worldview hold unique capacity to support divergent thinking, convergent thinking, self-efficacy, creative confidence, and digital connection. And the combination of all those factors, there was a quote from this woman who runs an organization for girls, and she said to me once that when kids have tools that meet their inner desires, they find that they are able to be their own mentor. And I thought that was such a powerful thing, because it really is, each of us have the ability to, when we believe that we have the ability to make an impact on the world, we trust ourselves in a different way. And we think that those are the key ingredients of global belonging. Okay, so kind of transitioning a little bit from some of the thoughts of why this is such a unique space, we looked at that and we were like, okay, if our goal as a nonprofit organization is to support kids in changing their world, to give them the tools that they need to do it, what does that mean, and how do we build something that can support that in a unique way? And I'm going to play a little video super fast. I hope it works. I've played around with it, so I hope I don't mess anybody's computer up. But I'm going to play this video now. And 1 second.
If the video doesn't show up for you in the web tour, I'll put the link in the chat, and you should click that link in the chat.
Perfect. 1 second. Let me just grab this if I have it. Get that going for you. Okay. So that's kind of, can everybody hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, great. Wonderful. So that gives you a little bit of a sense of what we've been working on the last year and a half as an organization is a place that can walk side by side with the authentic community in the space that we have in each of our schools and in each of our communities, and connect it to each other and do it through the vehicle of kids' creativity in a safe place. And on top of that, actually have kids see that their creativity is the thing that changes the world. And how we realized that there were a few things that we needed to address and meet to be able to do that. I'll tell you just a little bit quickly about how the Wonderment works. Basically, it's a free web and app platform that when kids come in, they can pick a path. They're ideas, people, stories from around the world, and they all are there with the intent to inspire creative action. And these creative challenges that are attached to each of these paths, kids around the world can participate in them together, collaborate, iterate, and basically get to know each other through the form of their creativity and the way that they each respond to the individual challenges. And the really cool thing is, as they participate, their participation actually drives a meter. And when that meter reaches the top of Social Good Project that the kids in the community have chosen gets funded by one of our Wonderment partners. So essentially, kids start to be able to see their creativity as a currency that actually changes the world in a very tangible way. And that does a few things. One, obviously, the creative and confidence and resilience and meeting the world through that viewpoint. We talked about kind of the benefit of that already, but also the self-efficacy element that is so important in developing an integrated worldview, is that when I show up and I create, I connect with other people, good things happen. And I think that that's a confidence that if kids really grew up having supported in a meaningful way, that's something that can take what we all see when we see this richness of potential in a child and allow them to see it materialize into form in really powerful ways. And with this, so clearly we've built a technology platform to support this. But the thing that's really interesting about it, and the thing that we have really felt strongly, is that this isn't, technology isn't a destination, it's a portal. And the key to that being a successful engagement are the environments on either side of that exchange that help to kind of anchor that exchange in a meaningful place and in a meaningful way. And that's why we really feel like it's never been more important, even though our emphasis as an organization is giving kids to tools to change their world, giving tools to kids to change their world, the adults that are in this space are more important than they've ever been. And we've called as we've been in a pilot program over the last couple of months, and that's a continuing thing. If you're interested in being a part of that, there will be information that we'll give you in the links and stuff. But we've called our adults in this space Wonder Guides. Oh shoot, can you hear me? Oops. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Awesome. Just wanted to make sure everybody could hear me. I was seeing on the chat here that maybe you guys had lost me. So, but yeah, these adults, we call them the Wonder Guides, and we've really come to see just such a rich potential of what happens when these adult figures in these spaces and the kids and students that they interact with on a day-to-day basis have a mutual trust that they create together. And I think Ann Michelson earlier just spoke to that so powerfully. I thought of, it is a little bit of a scary proposition to know how to do that together, but there's such a richness of what's possible when that happens. And so as we've been building this, we've realized that our Wonder Guides in our pilot program their value is inestimable. Our Wonder Guides do a variety of things. They obviously help kids in the different spaces, whether it's a library or a classroom, get on the Wonderment and engage in paths and interact with other kids around the world through those paths. They also help facilitate our Wonder Camp program, which is we connect up members of the Wonderment community, different classes and groups of kids, and allow them to have real-time interaction over Skype while they're doing these paths. So as they're creating together, they get the opportunity to actually engage face-to-face and kind of see that world on the other side. And it's literally my favorite thing in the whole world to see. Any of you obviously who engaged in things like that over Skype and whatever, I think that you've seen the potential of that, but it's a really exciting thing. And it's really been cool too, because as we've been in this process, it really has been these educators and these librarians who have inspired us. We've ranging from everything from meeting people at conferences like this one, to Twitter, to just different things that we're hearing. We see such again, a cool moment of meeting in time where the demand and the desire to connect to the world in new ways is being met with the tools and the spaces that can facilitate it. And we hope that that's something that in our own way we can help to help facilitate as well. But as I said before, we've been in a pilot program with the Wonderment. We're in 6 different locations around the world right now, and we've been testing Guatemala, Peru, Australia, let's see where else, Cambodia, of course I kind of talked about that, and India, and then a bunch of schools here in the States. But if you're interested in being a part of, in Peru, we're in Cusco. Actually, it's 2 of our team members are actually in Cusco today. We're doing one of the Wonderment Meter projects that we're doing is mime classes for a deaf school there. So they're actually helping to get that going. But yeah, so we've been in these variety of places around the world. We're looking to expand that and hoping that there are members of this community that are interested in participating in some way. And if you are, please just let us know and we can get you the information you need. But I'll go ahead and end kind of my comments, and I'd love to hear any questions that you might have with this last quote. And this is Rachel Carson. Oh, I missed attributing the quote on the slide. So it's Rachel Carson, who I think is a really fantastic individual. And she said, "If a child is to keep alive his inborn sense of wonder, he needs the companionship of at least one adult who can share it, rediscovering with him the joy, excitement, and mystery of the world we live in." And I just really have been lucky and felt really thankful over the last year and a half that we've been developing the Wonderment, that we've seen examples of this all over the world and the potential that is that's held within it. And we've been so excited to come from our background of creativity and technology and having the ability to build hopefully a tool and a platform to support people in doing that. So just so glad to be able to be a part of this community and be here today. And if you guys have any questions, happy to answer any questions.
So you can put questions in the chat, or you can raise your virtual hand and we'll give you microphone privileges to ask questions. People love that video, don't they?
It's funny, there's sometimes things that you watch on days where you need to pick me up, and that's, for me, I'm like, just watch that again and kind of get back to work. Barbara actually just said, and this is not a question necessarily, but the idea of arts and crafts programs in libraries and in schools and different things. And it's been interesting, we've even had some children's museums and things like that contact us because there's such cool things happening on the local community level, which is, there's such a richness in that. And having a platform to connect the amount of creativity that happens in a microcosmic community to kind of a macrocosmic world is something that really excites us. And so it really is, I mean, obviously I think that the library is a place that we've focused on is just because there's so many different opportunities there, but classrooms, youth groups, anything that you think, any group that you think would benefit from the merging of creativity and discovering the world and doing good. We have had some cool interactions with a lot of people that way. So it doesn't have to just be libraries, I guess what I'm saying. Uh-huh. That's a really good question. So from Lainey, bridging the online global collaboration to an IRL experience, that's really where I think that there's some pretty cool potential. We've been working with some different collaborators on the content side because paths really, in the system, paths are, it consists of something that's inspiring, a creative challenge that goes along with it, and then the ability for kids to share whatever they've created and then have a social exchange with other kids around it. And so I think that there are all kinds of cool things that could be, that could really be flexible, even in augmented reality type of things where you start getting pretty flexible with the system. And there was actually, I think this might have been from the Ann Michelson session earlier too, but the idea that if there's motivation, a curiosity of how you can use the platform to be more creative yourself, that's actually a good thing to be able to, and we're hoping to be able to open up the platform itself to teachers and to people who might want to be creating content of their own, that they can actually contribute content for the path and start their own global project-based learning interaction in that way too. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I think that we really see that this platform should be something where it inspires kids to go out and act and create in their communities and bring back that kind of the experience of that into a central platform that drives good in and of itself. So. Let's see. Are there any other questions? I didn't want to miss anybody if anybody had a question, but I think Jenna also, my colleague, put her contact information in the contact as well. So if there's any follow-up things, you can also, if you don't think of it now, you can also feel free to follow up with her as well. Oh yeah, I didn't even mention this. I guess we'll put this in the, we do have, so this is a page that we just put some videos and some basic resources. There's obviously the wonderment.com that you can go to find out about it, but also if you're interested in being involved in the pilot program specifically and being a Wonder Guide, you can go to thewonderguides.com and kind of see all the content and the different stuff around that. So, oh, it's thewonderguides.com, sorry. All right, well, if there aren't any other questions, we'll go ahead and close out of here so you guys can get on to your next one. But thanks again for your time. And, oh, there's a couple other questions. Awesome. Oh, from our experience, what's the most challenging? That's actually a fantastic question, too, because it seems like it changes on a day-to-day basis. So you'll get the answer for today of what's most challenging today. But I would say I think the thing that is challenging is making sure, because our emphasis in our organization is wanting this to be something that kids really are able to inform and drive, and it's you know, the purpose of our organization is to create tools for kids to change their world. So it's making sure that we don't take too adult of a perspective and that we build a lot of flexibility into that and ways that kids can engage in meaningful ways as we build it, and educators as well. Because it's one thing to just build, some app or some ed tech whatever and, and push it out and assume that you know all the answers. But I think that to be flexible and listening to a community and then also, trying to integrate all of those things, as well as the fact that internationally you have a lot of different cultures, you have a lot of different, the languages and different aspects of that we've just had to be dependent upon a lot of different people bringing a lot of different things to the table. And so I would say the most challenging thing for us is just making sure that we're always listening and that we are focusing on what people really need and not what we think they need, particularly with kids. So as far as our age range, it's really been fascinating. We started out looking at our age range being 7 to 12 mostly, and we really focus on that because of the middle childhood thing that I mentioned before. It's such a critical developmental window that isn't really being served in a lot of ways, particularly in the social good front, because they don't have their own unsupervised money or time, which is typically what getting engaged in social projects and things like that requires. So we started focusing on that middle childhood, and it's also when that creativity confidence drop happens most distinctly. So we focus on that, but as we kind of started, as we started rolling it out in our pilot program, and as we started having some of these participating schools and different people getting involved, we've actually had a lot older kids be really interested in it. And I think it's because, I kind of look at it and I'm just like, I think everybody wants to know that their creativity is needed by the world, and that it's something that, when you can engage with people in an intentional community where your creativity is really wanted and needed, and that's the emphasis of why you're there. It's kind of one of those things that's I think everybody feels a call for that. And so we've actually had a lot older kids, even college students. We've been meeting with college students over the last couple of months, and they're getting it going, not necessarily using the platform themselves, but engaging with being mentors in schools that are using the Wonderment, coming up with path content, so coming up with ideas for paths that we can put in there. There's all kinds of different ways that people can contribute their creativity to the platform. So if you have older audiences or older kids or older students you work with, there's definitely a place in the Wonderment for it. So in terms of teacher development to support in schools, we've actually been working, and this is something that if you're interested in being involved in, we would love it. The coolest people, one of the coolest things that we get to do is we have a small group of teachers that we meet with and that we run our ideas by, get ideas from them, and they're actually helping us to develop, starting in January. So we've been in this pilot testing program. We're continuing that, but adding more schools to the pilot. And in January, we'll start doing featured paths each week that everybody participates on themes. So in January, each week there will be a new path around the theme of music. And then we get experts and people to help us craft that content so that it's really engaging stuff. But with the professional development side of it, for each of those featured paths of the week, we are actually working with teachers to develop ideas for how to integrate it in lesson plans, what kind of different standard stuff you can apply it to if you're wanting to do that. So basically each week that there's a featured path, you'd also get the little package that gives you additional resources for how to integrate it into your library or classroom. So we're kind of doing it there. We'll also have a teacher community and Facebook page and forum where we're hoping that can turn into a really vibrant community of creatively minded teachers around the world as well. So there'll be a few different things moving forward, but if that's anything that you're interested in being involved in. And then in terms of the onboarding process, we've really worked it out. So we call it Wonder in a Box, but it's basically like we wanted to make it as easy as possible to get in, get integrated, get your kids up and on the platform, and that's something that we're getting ready to roll out right now. So that's a really good question too. How cultural differences have maybe interfered with the implementation, and how do we address the gap or the cultural misunderstanding? That's kind of in some ways where, so each of the groups of kids that we have engaged with in our pilot testing program, clearly we won't be able to do this as this kind of gets out to a bigger community, but we've actually gone there and worked with them in an in-person manner to be able to understand how to develop. And we haven't nailed it by any means, but we've found that everybody's so eager to interact with each other that it's actually been really cool to see kids kind of actually sharing that culture with each other and learning in almost more of a, like, kind of they're shooting past the gap of, you don't need to understand everything. We can figure out how to interact if you just let us do that. So our Wonder Camps have been a cool way to do that. What I mentioned before, those Skype conversations between the different communities and groups that we're engaging with, we've learned a ton through those engagements. And honestly, some of it's just trial and error. Like, we'll put out a path sometimes and it's just like it's crickets. And either it didn't capture the imagination of kids or it didn't translate well. And so when we try to assess what maybe caused that and how we can engage them better in the future. And the nice thing about the platform is it's really flexible to engage a lot of different people, and it's been informed by that. But yeah, I would say in terms of difficulty, it's probably just been sometimes when we try to get kids engaged, it doesn't click immediately. So we have to work a little harder to make sure that those communities know how to engage and support each other in that. And yeah, so we haven't had necessarily any negative experiences, but it's an ongoing process of learning. Oh, and that's another thing. If anybody wants to be a translator in WonderCamp type of, and in terms of content and path, we are definitely interested in engaging with people on that too. So. And then the follow-up question of that is, do you think it's because teams that are involved are very driven and that misunderstanding diminishes? I think that the other nice thing about working with younger kids is, in a lot of ways, they're so flexible. They just kind of like, they almost, I don't know, it's an interesting elasticity that they have to just kind of be like, well, I didn't get that. Let's move on to the next thing. Like, there's such a hunger for engagement that they actually, they kind of help find the solution in themselves, and we just kind of have to hold the space. And holding that space is making sure that we have, the right translations, the right thing, people involved and things like that. But yeah, I think that it is because people are really, they want to engage, kids want to engage, and when you give them that opportunity, they're pretty inventive and they figure it out, and it's amazing to watch as they do. Because we had a Wonder Camp a couple weeks ago with a group in Guatemala and then a group here in Salt Lake City, and if they don't get it, they just laugh at each other, and they almost have more fun just laughing, and then the laughter actually opens up some other totally separate thing that they can connect on. I feel like I'm learning interpersonal social skills from watching these kids and just how flexible they are with things. So. Yeah, with the teacher standard, that's something that we really, we want to make sure that, because that's the thing that's really cool about creativity. You can engage a lot of different needs using that as a vehicle, and that's something that as we grow and as we get your feedback as, hey, we use this in this way, and I saw this connection with, our small group of teachers that are volunteering to help us develop this curriculum. Are helping us with that right now, and we'll always be giving ideas of how you might be able to integrate that, but we also would love to hear your ideas. And because it's a flexible platform that can accommodate content and inspiration and action, there's a plethora of ways that you can utilize that. So yeah, we're excited to see what comes out of that, because I think that will, it's a way to show that creativity does belong even in standards conversations. So. Well, I have just had a fantastic time interacting with you guys, even though it's too much of my own voice. So, hope everybody has a great day. I'd love to, we're on Twitter. You'll find all of our social links on our pages, but I would love to keep the conversation going. And if any of you are interested in pilot program, let us know, and we will get you the information that you need. Everybody have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your sessions. I'm sure I'll bump into you in a few over the next couple of days. So